Opening hook, 80 words. Jake Mitchell's hands were shaking, not from fear, but from rage, as he stood in the diner parking lot, watching Officer Ryan Coleman mock him in front of his daughter for the third time that week. "Ex-cons like you don't deserve kids," Coleman had sneered. 8 hours later, Jake would sprint through Gunfire to save that same cop's life. But right now, all he could think about was keeping Emma from seeing her father cry. This is the story of how hate became redemption. Before we begin, if you're new here, hit that subscribe button and stick with me until the end of this story, and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel across the world. Jake woke up at 4:30 because prison had trained him that way. Not because of an alarm, not because he wanted to, because 18 months of sleeping with one eye open had rewired his brain, and now his body refused to believe he was safe. Emma was still asleep on the pull-out couch. She always kicked off her blanket in the middle of the night. Jake walked over and pulled it back up to her chin, careful not to wake her. Her stuffed rabbit had fallen on the floor. He picked it up and tucked it under her arm. She looked just like Sarah. Jake pushed that thought away and went to make coffee. "Dad." He turned. Emma was sitting up, rubbing her eyes. "Morning, baby. Did I wake you?" "No. I had a dream." "Good or bad?" "I don't remember." She yawned. "Is it a school day?" "Yeah, you want pancakes? Chocolate chip?" "If we got 'em." They did. Jake flipped 3 on the griddle, while Emma sat at the table in her pajamas drawing in her notebook like she did every morning. Always animals. Today it was a dog. "Dad?" "Yeah. Why doesn't Officer Coleman like you?" Jake's hand froze mid-flip. He kept his back to her so she wouldn't see his face. "Some people make up their minds about you before they know you, Em. That's just how it is." "But you're not bad." "I know, and you know. That's what matters." "He's mean." "Yeah, he is." Jake slid the pancakes onto her plate and sat down across from her. Emma drowned them in syrup and ate with her fingers. Sarah used to do that too. Jake sipped his coffee and tried not to think about all the ways his life had gone wrong. At 7:15, they walked to school. 8 blocks. Emma held his hand the whole way. "You nervous about the spelling test?" Jake asked. "A little, but I studied." "You're gonna do great." At the school gates, Emma kissed his cheek and ran off. Jake watched until she disappeared inside, then turned and headed to the diner. Lou was already behind the counter when Jake walked in through the back. "Morning." "Morning, Jake. Coffee's fresh." Jake tied on his apron and went straight to the sink. Breakfast rush meant dishes piled high, eggs crusted on plates, bacon grease syrup that stuck to everything. He scrubbed in silence, his hands moving on autopilot. "Jake!" Lou's voice cut through the noise. Jake looked up. Lou was standing in the doorway, and his face said it all. "What?" "Coleman's out front." Jake felt his stomach drop. "What's he want?" "Hell if I know. Just keep your cool." Jake dried his hands and walked into the dining area. Coleman was sitting in a booth by the window, a lone coffee cup in front of him. He didn't look up when Jake approached. "Mitchell, sit." "I'm working." "I said sit." Jake slid into the booth. Lou was watching from behind the counter, his jaw tight. Coleman took a sip of coffee, still not looking at Jake. Then he set the cup down and leaned back. "You settling in okay?" "Fine." "Good. That's good." Coleman finally met his eyes. "I've been thinking about you. About your situation. Single dad. Ex-con. Trying to make it work." "Is there a point?" "The point is, I want to make sure we understand each other." Coleman leaned forward. "You think you can just walk back into this town like nothing happened? You think people forgot what you did? I did my time." "Your time?" Coleman laughed, but there was no humor in it. You drove a truck full of stolen goods across state lines while your wife was dying. You abandoned your kid. And now you're back here washing dishes playing daddy. You think that makes you a good man? Jake's fists clenched under the table. He could feel the heat rising in his chest, his pulse pounding in his ears. I made a mistake. A mistake. Coleman shook his head. A mistake is forgetting to pay a parking ticket. What you did was selfish, reckless, and I'll be damned if I let you drag that little girl down with you. Don't talk about my daughter. I'll talk about whoever I want. You know what I think? I think it's only a matter of time before you screw up again. And when you do, I'll be there. I'll make sure Emma ends up somewhere safe. Somewhere far away from you. Jake stood up so fast the table shook. Coleman didn't flinch. Sit down, Mitchell. We're done here. We're done when I say we're done. Lou stepped out from behind the counter. Officer Coleman, I think... Stay out of this, Lou. Jake turned and walked back into the kitchen. His hands were shaking. He gripped the edge of the sink and took deep breaths, trying to calm down. Behind him, he heard Coleman stand up, drop money on the table and leave. Lou came in a minute later. You okay? Jake didn't answer. He's got no right talking to you like that. Doesn't matter. It does matter. You're a good man, Jake. Don't let him... I said it doesn't matter. Lou sighed. Fine. Just don't let him get in your head. Jake went back to the dishes. He scrubbed until his fingers were raw, until the breakfast rush was over, and the lunch crowd started trickling in. At 2 o'clock, Lou handed him $70 cash and told him to go home early. Get some rest. Jake nodded and left. He walked through town with his hood up, hands in his pockets. Millbrook was small. Everybody knew everybody. Jake could feel people staring as he passed. Mrs. Harper at the post office. Mr. Jennings outside the barber shop. They didn't say anything. They didn't have to. He stopped at the grocery store and bought spaghetti ground beef and a loaf of bread. Emma wanted ice cream, but Jake didn't have enough. At 3 o'clock, he picked Emma up from school. She came running out with her backpack bouncing. Dad. Hey, baby. How was your day? Good, I got 100 on my spelling test. That's my girl. I knew you would. They started walking home. Emma talked the whole way about her test about the boy in her class who got in trouble about the science project she had to do next week. Jake listened, nodding, but his mind kept drifting back to Coleman. I'll make sure Emma ends up somewhere safe, somewhere far away from you. Dad? Jake blinked. Yeah, you're not listening. I am, I promise. What did I just say? Jake hesitated. Emma crossed her arms. You weren't listening. I'm sorry, Em. I was just thinking about work. You're always thinking about work. I know. I'm sorry. Emma's face softened. She grabbed his hand. It's okay. They walked the rest of the way in silence. At home, Jake cooked spaghetti while Emma did her homework. She was quiet, more focused than usual. Jake kept glancing at her, wondering if something was wrong. Everything okay at school? He asked. Yeah. You sure? Emma looked up. Dad, can I ask you something? Of course. Why did you go to prison? Jake froze. He turned off the stove and sat down across from her. Where's this coming from? Some kids at school were talking. They said you're a criminal. They said I shouldn't be around you. Jake felt like he'd been punched in the gut. Who said that? It doesn't matter. Em, just tell me, why did you go? Jake took a breath. I made a bad choice. Your mom was sick and we didn't have money for the hospital. A guy offered me a job driving a truck. He said it was easy money. I didn't ask questions because I didn't want to know the answers, and I got caught. Did you hurt anyone? No, never. Then why do people treat you like you did? Jake reached across the table and took her hand. Because people are scared. They see someone who made a mistake and they think that's all you are. They don't see the person behind it. But you're a good person. I'm trying to be. Emma squeezed his hand. You are Dad. I know you are. Jake's throat tightened. He pulled Emma into a hug and held her tight. I love you, kiddo. I love you too. They ate dinner together watching an old sitcom on the tiny TV. Emma laughed at the jokes. Jake pretended to. At 8 o'clock, he tucked her into bed. Dad? Yeah. Are we gonna be okay? Jake kissed her forehead. We're gonna be just fine. Promise. Promise. Emma smiled and closed her eyes. Jake turned off the light and sat on the edge of his own bed, staring at the wall. He thought about Coleman, about the threat, about the kids at school who were calling his daughter a criminal's kid. He thought about Sarah and how she'd tell him to stay strong, to keep fighting. But Sarah wasn't here, and Jake was so damn tired of fighting. He lay down, closed his eyes, and tried to sleep. But sleep didn't come easy anymore. The next morning started the same way. 4:30, coffee, pancakes, Emma holding his hand on the walk to school. But when they got to the gates, Jake saw something that made his blood run cold. Officer Coleman was standing by the entrance talking to Emma's teacher, Mrs. Peterson. They were both looking at him. Jake stopped walking. Emma noticed. What's wrong? Nothing. Go ahead. I'll see you later. But, go, Em. You're gonna be late. Emma hesitated, then ran inside. Jake stood there watching Coleman and Mrs. Peterson. They were still talking, still looking his way. Coleman waved him over. Jake didn't move. Coleman waved again, more insistent this time. Jake crossed the street slowly, his fists clenched at his sides. Mrs. Peterson looked uncomfortable. Coleman looked satisfied. Mr. Mitchell, Mrs. Peterson said. Officer Coleman was just... I was just making sure Mrs. Peterson knows who she's dealing with. Coleman interrupted. I think it's important for teachers to understand the background of their students' parents. Don't you agree? Jake's jaw tightened. What are you doing? My job, protecting the community. By harassing me in front of my daughter's school. Harassing... Coleman smiled. I'm having a conversation. That's not illegal, or is it? You'd know better than me. Mrs. Peterson stepped forward. Officer Coleman, I appreciate your concern, but... Do you know what he did? Coleman asked her. Do you know why he went to prison? That's not... He drove a truck full of stolen electronics. Felony theft. Interstate commerce. He left his dying wife and his kid to chase a payday that didn't even exist. That's enough, Jake said. Is it because I don't think Mrs. Peterson knows the kind of man dropping off Emma every morning? I don't think she knows that he's one mistake away from going back inside. Jake stepped closer. Back off. Coleman didn't move. Or what? Officer Coleman, please, Mrs. Peterson said. This isn't appropriate. You're right. It's not appropriate for a felon to be raising a child alone. Maybe someone should look into that. Jake's hands were shaking. He could feel the rage building, the same rage that had gotten him in trouble before. He wanted to hit Coleman. He wanted to grab him by the collar and throw him into the street. But he didn't. He thought about Emma, about losing her, about everything he'd worked for falling apart because of one moment of anger. Jake took a step back. You done? He asked quietly. Coleman's smile faded. For now. Good. Jake turned and walked away. Behind him he heard Mrs. Peterson say something, but he couldn't make out the words. His ears were ringing, his chest was tight. He walked back to the apartment, slammed the door, and punched the wall. His knuckles split. Blood dripped onto the floor. Jake stared at it, breathing hard, trying to calm down. He couldn't keep doing this. He couldn't keep letting Coleman push him around. But what choice did he have? Jake washed his hand in the sink and wrapped it in a towel. Then, he sat down at the table and put his head in his hands. His phone buzzed. A text from Lou. You coming in today? Jake stared at the message. He didn't want to go. He wanted to stay here in this apartment and pretend the world didn't exist. But Emma needed him, and that meant showing up, every day, no matter how hard it got. Jake texted back, "Yeah, be there in 20. He grabbed his jacket and left. The diner was busy when Jake arrived. Lou was behind the counter juggling orders, looking stressed. Jake went straight to the sink and got to work. You okay? Lou asked when he got a chance. Fine. Your hand's bleeding. It's fine. Lou didn't push. Jake scrubbed dishes one after another, letting the hot water burn his raw knuckles. It hurt, but it was a good hurt. A distraction. Around noon, the door chimed. Jake glanced up out of habit and saw Emma's teacher, Mrs. Peterson, walking in. She spotted Jake through the kitchen window and gave him a small, sympathetic smile. Jake turned back to the dishes. A few minutes later, Lou came into the kitchen. Mrs. Peterson wants to talk to you. Tell her I'm busy. Jake. I said I'm busy. Lou sighed but didn't argue. Jake heard him walk back out, heard him apologizing to Mrs. Peterson. Jake kept scrubbing. But 10 minutes later, Mrs. Peterson walked into the kitchen herself. Mr. Mitchell. Jake turned. I'm working. I know, I wanted to apologize for this morning. You didn't do anything wrong. I should have stopped him sooner. What he said, what he did, it wasn't fair. Jake set down the plate he was holding. Mrs. Peterson, with all due respect, I don't need your pity. It's not pity, it's concern. Emma's a wonderful student. She's smart, kind, and she clearly loves you very much. But she's been having a hard time lately. Jake's stomach dropped. What do you mean? Some of the other kids have been saying things about you, about your past. Emma's been defending you, but it's taking a toll. Jake felt like the floor had dropped out from under him. Why didn't you tell me? I wanted to. But Emma made me promise not to. She didn't want you to worry. Jake leaned against the counter, suddenly exhausted. What do I do? Be there for her. Keep showing up. That's all you can do. Mrs. Peterson touched his arm gently, then left. Jake stood there for a long time, staring at nothing. That afternoon, when Jake picked Emma up from school, she was quieter than usual. No stories, no chatter, just silence. You okay? Jake asked. Yeah. You sure? I said I'm fine, Dad. They walked home without another word. At dinner, Emma barely touched her food. Jake tried to make conversation, but she gave one-word answers. Finally, he set down his fork. Em, talk to me. What's going on? Nothing. Don't give me that. Something's wrong. Emma's eyes filled with tears. Why do people hate you so much? Jake's heart broke. Baby. They say you're a bad person. They say I shouldn't be around you. They say you're going to hurt me. That's not true. Then why do they say it? Jake got up and knelt beside her chair. He took her hands in his. Listen to me. People are scared of things they don't understand. They hear one thing about someone, one mistake, and they make up their minds. But you know me. You know who I am. And that's all that matters. But what if they take me away? They won't. But what if they do? Jake pulled her into a hug. I won't let that happen. I promise. Emma sobbed into his shoulder. Jake held her tight, feeling completely helpless. Later that night, after Emma was asleep, Jake sat on the edge of his bed and stared at his phone. He thought about calling Sarah's sister, about asking for help, about admitting he couldn't do this alone. But he didn't, because admitting defeat meant losing Emma, and Jake would rather die than let that happen. He lay down, closed his eyes, and tried to sleep. Tomorrow would be another fight. But Jake Mitchell had been fighting his whole life, and he wasn't about to stop now. 3 days passed before Coleman showed up again. 3 days where Jake thought maybe, just maybe, the cop had decided to leave him alone. He should have known better. It was Thursday afternoon. Jake was at the diner, elbow deep in soapy water, when Lou stuck his head into the kitchen. "Jake, he's back." Jake didn't need to ask who. He dried his hands and walked out front. Coleman was at the counter this time, coffee in hand, talking to a woman Jake didn't recognize. She was dressed professionally, blazer-pressed pants, a briefcase at her feet. When Jake appeared, Coleman smiled. "There he is. Jake Mitchell, meet Ms. Andrea Lawson. She's with Child Protective Services." Jake's blood ran cold. The woman extended her hand. Jake didn't take it. "Mr. Mitchell, I'm here to follow up on a report we received regarding your daughter Emma's living situation." "A report?" Jake's voice was flat. He looked at Coleman. "You called CPS on me." Coleman shrugged. "I'm a concerned citizen. I see something that doesn't look right, I report it. That's my job." "There's nothing wrong with Emma's living situation." Ms. Lawson pulled out a notepad. "I'm sure there isn't. This is just a routine check. We want to make sure Emma has everything she needs. Stable housing, proper supervision, a safe environment. She has all that. I'd like to see for myself. Would you be available for a home visit tomorrow afternoon?" Jake's jaw clenched. "Do I have a choice?" "Of course you do, but refusing would raise some concerns." Coleman sipped his coffee, watching Jake with barely concealed satisfaction. "Fine," Jake said. "Tomorrow, 4 o'clock. "Perfect." Ms. Lawson handed him a business card. "I'll see you then." She left. Coleman stayed. "You son of a bitch," Jake said quietly. "Watch your language, Mitchell. There are customers. You're trying to take my daughter. I'm trying to make sure she's safe. Big difference. She is safe." "Is she?" Coleman leaned forward. "Because from where I'm standing, she's living in a studio apartment with an ex-con who can barely afford to feed her. She's getting bullied at school because of you. She's got no stability, no future. You really think that's what's best for her?" Jake's fists clenched. "You don't know anything about us." "I know enough." "Why are you doing this? What did I ever do to you?" Coleman's face hardened. "You exist. That's enough. This town doesn't need people like you, and that little girl deserves better than a father who threw his life away." Jake stepped closer. Lou moved toward them, nervous. "Guys, come on." "You think you're protecting her," Jake said, his voice low and dangerous. "But all you're doing is hurting her. You're the reason she's getting bullied. You're the reason she cries herself to sleep. Not me. You." Coleman stood up, squaring his shoulders. "You threatening me? I'm telling you the truth. The truth is, you're one bad day away from doing something stupid. And when you do, I'll be there to pick up the pieces, for Emma's sake." Jake felt the rage boiling over. He could see it happening, his fist connecting with Coleman's jaw, the cop hitting the floor, the satisfaction of finally fighting back. But he also saw what came next. Handcuffs. Jail. Emma in foster care. He took a step back. "Get out." Coleman smiled. "See you around, Mitchell." He dropped a 5 on the counter and left. Jake stood there, shaking his breath, coming in short gasps. Lou put a hand on his shoulder. "You okay?" "No." "What are you gonna do?" "I don't know." Lou squeezed his shoulder. "You're a good man, Jake. Don't let him make you forget that." Jake nodded, but he didn't believe it. Not anymore. That night, Jake couldn't sleep. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to Emma breathe across the room. CPS was coming tomorrow. They were going to walk through his apartment, look at everything he'd worked for, and decide if it was enough. What if it wasn't? What if they took her? Jake got up and paced. The apartment was small, cramped, but it was clean. He'd made sure of that. Emma had her own space, her own clothes, her own books. She ate 3 meals a day. She went to school. She was loved. Wasn't that enough? At 5 in the morning, Jake gave up on sleep. He made coffee and sat at the table going over everything in his head. The apartment, his job, his record. Everything they'd use against him. When Emma woke up, she found him still sitting there. "Dad? You okay?" Jake forced a smile. "Yeah, baby, just thinking." "About what?" "Stuff. Nothing for you to worry about." Emma sat down across from him. "Is it about Officer Coleman?" Jake's smile faltered. "Why do you ask?" "Because you always get quiet when it's about him." Jake reached across the table and took her hand. I need to tell you something. A lady's coming by the apartment today. Her name's Ms. Lawson. She's from an agency that helps kids. She just wants to make sure you're okay." Emma's eyes widened. "Are they going to take me away?" "No. No, baby, that's not." "That's what Tyler said at school. He said CPS takes kids away from bad parents." "I'm not a bad parent." "I know that." "Then you don't have anything to worry about. Just be yourself. Answer her questions honestly. Everything's gonna be fine." Emma didn't look convinced. Jake didn't blame her. He wasn't convinced either. They went through their morning routine pancakes, getting dressed, the walk to school. Emma held his hand tighter than usual. At the gates, she turned and hugged him hard. "I love you, Dad." "I love you too, kiddo. More than anything." Emma pulled back, her eyes wet. "Don't let them take me." "I won't. I promise." She ran inside. Jake watched until she disappeared, then turned and walked to the diner. The shift dragged. Every minute felt like an hour. Jake kept checking his phone, watching the clock. At 3:30, Lou told him to go home early. "You need to prepare. Go." Jake nodded and left. At the apartment, he cleaned everything again, even though it was already spotless. He made Emma's bed. He organized her books. He put out fresh towels in the bathroom. He was arranging the couch cushions when there was a knock at the door. 4 o'clock, right on time. Jake opened it. Ms. Lawson stood there with a clipboard, professional smile in place. "Mr. Mitchell, thank you for having me. Come in." She stepped inside and immediately started taking notes. Jake watched her eyes scan the room, the pull-out couch, the small kitchen, the curtain separating Emma's space. "It's cozy," she said. "It's what we can afford." "I understand. May I look around?" "Go ahead." Ms. Lawson walked through the apartment, slowly opening cabinets, checking the fridge, inspecting Emma's corner. Jake stood by the door, arms crossed, trying not to look as terrified as he felt. "Where does Emma sleep?" Ms. Lawson asked. "The pull-out couch. I take the bed." "D?" "And where do you sleep?" Jake pointed to the single bed against the wall. Ms. Lawson made a note. "It's a small space for 2 people. It's temporary. I'm saving for something bigger." "How long have you been here?" 6 months. "And before that?" "Emma was with her aunt in Cleveland. I was away." "In prison?" Jake's jaw tightened. "Yes. For felony theft. I drove a truck across state lines. The cargo was stolen. I didn't know at the time, but ignorance isn't a defense." 18 months. "Yes." Ms. Lawson made another note. "And Emma's mother?" "Dead, 3 years ago, cancer." "I'm sorry." Jake didn't respond. Ms. Lawson sat down at the table and gestured for Jake to do the same. He did. "Mr. Mitchell, I'm going to be honest with you. This situation isn't ideal. You're a single parent with a felony record, living in a studio apartment, working a minimum wage job. Emma's struggling at school. She's being bullied because of your past. These are red flags." "I know. But..." Ms. Lawson set down her pen. "I've seen a lot worse. This apartment is clean. Emma has food, clothes, and her own space. You're employed, you're present, and from what I can see, you're trying." Jake felt a small flicker of hope. So, so I'm not removing Emma, not today. But I am opening a case file. I'll be checking in regularly monthly visits calls to Emma's school conversations with her teacher. If anything changes, if I see any signs of neglect or instability, that decision could change. Do you understand? Yes. Good. Now when Emma gets home, I'd like to speak with her. Alone. Is that okay? Jake wanted to say no. He wanted to tell this woman to leave and never come back. But he knew that wasn't an option. Yeah, that's fine. They sat in awkward silence for 20 minutes until Emma came home. She froze when she saw Ms. Lawson. Emma, hi. I'm Ms. Lawson. Your dad and I have been talking, and now I'd like to talk to you. Is that okay? Emma looked at Jake. He nodded. Okay, Emma said quietly. Great. Mr. Mitchell, would you mind stepping outside for a few minutes? Jake stood up, his heart pounding. I'll be right outside, Em. Emma nodded. Jake left and closed the door behind him. He stood in the hallway pacing, trying to hear what was being said inside, but catching only muffled voices. 15 minutes felt like 15 hours. Finally, the door opened. Ms. Lawson stepped out. Mr. Mitchell, Emma's fine. She's happy, healthy, and clearly loves you very much. I don't see any cause for immediate concern. Jake exhaled. Thank you. But like I said, I'll be checking in. Don't make me regret this decision. I won't. Ms. Lawson left. Jake went back inside. Emma was sitting on the couch, looking small and scared. You okay? Jake asked. She asked me a lot of questions. Like what? If you ever hurt me, if I have enough food, if I'm happy. What did you say? The truth. That you're the best dad in the world. Jake's throat tightened. He sat down beside her and pulled her into a hug. I'm sorry, Em. I'm so sorry you have to deal with all this. It's not your fault. It is. If I hadn't... Dad, stop. Emma pulled back and looked at him. You made a mistake, but you're fixing it. That's what matters. Jake stared at his 9-year-old daughter and realized she was wiser than he'd ever be. When did you get so smart? Emma smiled. I learned from the best. That night after Emma was asleep, Jake sat at the table with his phone in his hand. He pulled up Coleman's number. Not that he'd ever called it, but it was in his contacts from when Lou had given it to him months ago, warning him to stay out of trouble. Jake stared at the screen for a long time. Then he typed out a message. You win. I'll leave town. Just leave Emma alone. His finger hovered over the send button. Then he deleted it. Because running wouldn't solve anything. It would just prove Coleman right. Jake set the phone down and went to bed. But sleep didn't come. The next morning, Jake was exhausted. He moved through his routine like a zombie coffee pancakes the walk to school. Emma talked about a field trip coming up. Jake nodded along, only half listening. At the diner, Lou took one look at him and frowned. You look like hell. Thanks. What happened with CPS? They're watching me, monthly check-ins. If I screw up once they take her. Lou cursed under his breath. Coleman? Who else? That guy's got a vendetta. Yeah, well, he's winning. Jake went to the sink and started washing. His mind was somewhere else, on Emma, on Coleman, on the constant fear that one wrong move would destroy everything. Around 11, the door chimed. Jake didn't look up. Then he heard Lou's voice, tense and angry. I think you've done enough. Jake turned. Coleman was at the counter. Just here for coffee, Lou. Relax. Get out. Coleman smiled. This is a public establishment. You can't refuse service. Watch me. Jake set down the plate he was holding and walked out front. Coleman saw him, and his smile widened. Mitchell, how'd yesterday go? Jake didn't answer. Let me guess. CPS gave you a warning, told you they'd be watching. That's usually how it goes. What do you want? Just checking in. Making sure Emma's okay. She's fine. For now? Jake stepped closer. Why do you hate me so much? What did I do? Coleman's smile faded. For a moment, just a moment, Jake saw something else in the cop's eyes. Pain, anger, regret. You want to know why? Coleman's voice dropped. Because I had a brother. Younger brother. Good kid. Got mixed up with the wrong people. Started running drugs. Said it was just one time just to make some quick cash. Got caught. 3 years in prison. When he got out, he couldn't find work. Couldn't rebuild. Everyone treated him like trash. So he put a gun in his mouth and pulled the trigger. Jake went still. You remind me of him, Coleman continued. Same excuses, same justifications, same path. And I'll be damned if I let another kid grow up watching her father self-destruct. I'm not your brother. No, but you will be. It's only a matter of time. Jake looked at Coleman, really looked at him, and saw something he hadn't noticed before. The trembling hands, the bloodshot eyes, the smell of alcohol trying to be covered up with mints. You're drunk, Jake said quietly. Coleman stiffened. I'm fine. No, you're not. You're hurting, and instead of dealing with it, you're taking it out on me. Don't psychoanalyze me. You think hurting me makes you strong, Jake said. But it won't fix what's broken in you. It won't bring your brother back. Coleman's face twisted with rage. You don't know anything about me. I know you're scared. I know you're angry. And I know you're drinking to forget. I can see it in your eyes, Coleman. You're not a cop trying to protect people. You're a man trying to punish himself. Shut up. You want to blame someone, blame the people who failed your brother, blame the system, blame yourself if you have to, but don't blame me. Coleman grabbed Jake by the shirt. I said shut up. Lou came around the counter. Let him go. Coleman didn't move. His hand was shaking. His breathing was ragged. For a second, Jake thought he might actually swing. Then Coleman let go. You're pathetic, he said, his voice hollow. Both of you. He turned and walked out. Lou exhaled. You okay? Jake nodded, but he wasn't. His heart was pounding. His hands were shaking. Because for the first time, he'd seen Coleman not as an enemy, but as a man just as broken as he was. And that terrified him more than anything. That night, Jake couldn't stop thinking about what he'd seen in Coleman's eyes. The pain, the self-destruction. It was like looking in a mirror. He was making dinner when Emma asked, Dad, do you think people can change? Jake stopped stirring the pasta. Where's that coming from? I don't know, just wondering. Jake turned off the stove and sat down across from her. Yeah, Em, I think they can, if they want to bad enough. Even bad people. There's no such thing as bad people, just people who make bad choices, and if they're willing to do the work, they can make better ones. Emma nodded, satisfied. Jake wished he believed his own words. The next 2 days passed quietly. No Coleman, no CPS, just work and school and the routine that kept them moving forward. Jake started to think maybe things would settle down. He should have known better. It was Friday afternoon. Jake had just picked Emma up from school when his phone buzzed. A text from Lou. Turn on the news. Jake's stomach dropped. He and Emma hurried home. Jake flipped on the TV and found the local news station. A reporter stood on Main Street, emergency vehicles flashing behind her. We're here at First National Bank where an armed robbery is currently in progress. Police have the building surrounded, but shots have been fired and at least one officer is down. We're being told to stay back. Jake's blood ran cold. The bank was 3 blocks away. Emma grabbed his arm. Dad, what's happening? Stay here. What? No. Emma, I need you to lock the door and don't open it for anyone except me. Understand? You're scaring me. Jake knelt down and held her shoulders. I know, baby, but I need you to be brave. Can you do that? Emma nodded, tears in her eyes. Jake kissed her forehead, then grabbed his jacket and ran out the door. He could hear Emma calling after him, but he didn't stop. He ran toward Main Street, his heart pounding. Police cars blocked the intersection. Officers crouched behind their vehicles, weapons drawn. Jake pushed through the crowd of onlookers until a cop grabbed his arm. "Sir, you need to step back. What's happening?" "Armed robbery. 2 suspects inside. They've taken hostages." "The officer who's down, who is it?" The cop hesitated. "Coleman. Ryan Coleman." Jake felt like he'd been punched. "Is he alive?" "Barely. They shot him when he tried to enter the building. He's trapped inside near the entrance. We can't get to him without the suspects opening fire." Jake's mind raced. Coleman was dying in there. The man who'd made his life hell for 6 months was bleeding out on a bank floor. He should have felt satisfaction, relief, justice. Instead, he felt sick. "How long has he been down?" 10 minutes, maybe more. "Sir, you need to move back." Jake pulled away and ran toward the bank. Shouts erupted behind him. "Hey, stop! Somebody grab him!" Jake didn't stop. He ducked under the police tape, sprinted across the parking lot, and threw himself through the bank's shattered front door. Inside, it was chaos. Broken glass everywhere, overturned chairs. And Coleman slumped against the wall near the entrance, his uniform soaked with blood. "Mitchell." Coleman's voice was weak. "What the hell are you?" "Shut up." Jake grabbed Coleman under the arms and started dragging him toward the door. Coleman screamed in pain. "Stop, you're gonna—" "I said shut up." A voice shouted from deeper in the bank. "Hey, who's that?" Jake looked up. 2 kids couldn't have been older than 17 stood near the teller windows, both holding guns. They looked terrified. "Don't shoot," Jake said, his voice calm. "I'm just getting him out." "You a cop?" "No." "Then who are you?" "Nobody, just a guy." The taller kid, skinny, acne-scarred, shaking, pointed his gun at Jake. "You need to leave." "I will, after I get him out." "We'll shoot you." Jake looked at the kid, really looked at him, and saw the same thing he'd seen in Coleman. Fear, desperation. A man or boy who'd made a terrible choice and didn't know how to get out. "You don't want to do that," Jake said. "Yes, we do." "No, you don't. You're scared. You're in over your head. But killing someone, that changes everything. You can't come back from that." The second kid, shorter, heavier, crying, lowered his gun. "He's right, Tyler. We shouldn't have done this. We shouldn't." "Shut up, Marcus." "Your friend's right," Jake said. "Whatever you came here for, it's not worth this. Put the guns down. Walk out with your hands up. You'll do time, yeah, but you'll be alive. You'll get another chance." Tyler's gun wavered. "We needed the money. My mom, she's got cancer. The treatments we couldn't afford." "I know," Jake said quietly. "I've been there. My wife died of cancer 3 years ago. Medical debt buried me. I made a stupid choice trying to fix it and it cost me everything. Don't make the same mistake." Tyler was crying now. "I don't know what to do." "Yes, you do. Put the gun down." Tyler looked at Marcus, then back at Jake. Slowly he lowered the weapon. Okay, we'll—" The front window exploded. A flashbang grenade rolled across the floor. Jake threw himself over Coleman as the blast went off, blinding and deafening. When his vision cleared, SWAT officers were pouring through the door. "Hands up! Get down now!" Tyler and Marcus hit the floor, hands over their heads. Jake stayed on top of Coleman until an officer pulled him off. "Are you injured?" "No, but he is. He needs an ambulance." Paramedics rushed in. They lifted Coleman onto a stretcher and carried him out. Jake stood there covered in Coleman's blood, his ears still ringing. An officer grabbed his arm. "You're coming with us." "Am I under arrest?" "That depends." "What the hell were you thinking?" "I was thinking someone was dying." They brought Jake outside. The crowd erupted in whispers and shouts. Cameras flashed. A reporter shoved a microphone in his face. "Sir, can you tell us what happened?" Jake pushed past her and looked for Emma. She was standing behind the police tape, held back by Lou. When she saw Jake, she broke free and ran to him. "Dad!" Jake caught her and held her tight. I'm okay, baby. I'm okay. You scared me. I know. I'm sorry. A detective approached. Mr. Mitchell, I need to ask you some questions. Jake nodded. He spent the next hour being questioned why he'd entered the bank, what he'd said to the suspects, how he'd gotten Coleman out. He answered everything honestly. When they finally let him go, Lou was waiting with Emma. You're insane, Lou said. Probably. You could have been killed. Yeah. So why'd you do it? Jake looked at Emma, then back at Lou. Because it was the right thing to do. They walked home in silence. Emma held his hand the entire way. At the apartment, Jake showered and changed while Emma sat on the couch, hugging her rabbit. When he came out, she was crying. Em, what's wrong? I thought you were going to die. Jake sat beside her and pulled her close. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have scared you like that. Why did you save him? He's been so mean to you. Because he needed help. And when someone needs help, you help them, no matter what. Even if they're bad to you. Especially then. Emma wiped her eyes. You're really brave, Dad. I'm not brave. I'm just tired of being angry. That night, Jake couldn't sleep. He kept replaying the moment in the bank Tyler's gun pointed at him. Coleman bleeding on the floor. The choice to run in when every logical part of his brain screamed to stay away. He'd spent 6 months being careful, playing it safe, keeping his head down. And in one moment, he'd thrown all of that away. For Coleman, the man who'd tried to destroy him. Jake didn't regret it, but he didn't understand it either. The next morning, there was a knock at the door. Jake opened it to find Ms. Lawson standing there, her expression unreadable. Ms. Lawson, is everything? I saw the news. Jake's stomach dropped. I can explain. Mr. Mitchell, you ran into an active hostage situation. You put yourself in danger. You could have been killed. I know. Emma could have lost you. I know. Ms. Lawson crossed her arms. What were you thinking? Jake took a breath. I was thinking that a man was dying, and that if I could do something, anything to stop that, I had to try, even if that man hated me. Ms. Lawson stared at him for a long moment. Then, to Jake's surprise, she smiled. You're an idiot. Yeah, I've been told. But you're a good man. She pulled out her notepad and made a mark. I'm closing your case file. Emma's lucky to have you. Jake felt tears prick his eyes. Thank you, Dr. Bios. Lawson nodded and left. Jake closed the door and leaned against it, overwhelmed. Emma appeared beside him. What did she say? She said we're okay. Emma hugged him. I told you everything would be fine. Jake laughed through his tears. Yeah, baby, you did. 2 days later, Jake was at the diner when Lou came into the kitchen, his face pale. Coleman's awake. Jake froze. What? He's at County General. The doctor said he's gonna make it. Jake didn't know what to say. He wants to see you, Lou added. Me? Yeah. The nurse called here looking for you. Jake's hands started shaking. I can't. Why not? Because I don't know what to say to him. Lou put a hand on his shoulder. Then don't say anything, just go. Jake finished his shift, picked up Emma from school, and brought her to Lou's house. Lou's wife agreed to watch her for the afternoon. Then Jake drove to the hospital. He stood outside Coleman's room for 10 minutes before he finally knocked. Come in. Jake pushed open the door. Coleman lay in the bed, pale and bandaged, hooked up to monitors. When he saw Jake, his expression shifted surprise, then something else. Something Jake couldn't quite read. Mitchell. Coleman. They stared at each other. Finally, Coleman spoke. They told me what you did. Jake didn't respond. You saved my life. I did what anyone would have done. No. Coleman's voice cracked. You did what I wouldn't have done. If it was you in there, I would have left you to die. Jake sat down in the chair beside the bed. I know. So why? Jake thought about lying, about giving some noble answer, but he was too tired for that. Because I saw you, really saw you, and I realized you're just as broken as I am. And if there was a chance, even a small one, that I could stop you from dying alone and angry like your brother did, I had to take it. Coleman's eyes filled with tears. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? You're drinking yourself to death, Coleman. You're destroying everyone around you, trying to punish yourself for something that wasn't your fault. Your brother made his own choices, just like I made mine, and just like you're making yours. I tried to ruin you. Yeah, you did. I called CPS. I harassed you. I tried to take your daughter. I know. Coleman looked away, his jaw tight. Why don't you hate me? Because hate takes too much energy, and I'm too tired to hate anyone anymore. They sat in silence. Finally, Coleman spoke again. My brother's name was Danny. He was 23 when he died. Best kid you'd ever meet. Smart. Funny. He made one mistake, and it destroyed him. I'm sorry. I spent 5 years blaming everyone. The system, the people who arrested him, the prison guards, his friends. And then, I saw you. Ex-con trying to rebuild, trying to be a good father. And I saw Danny, and I couldn't stand it. You were trying to save him. Yeah, by destroying you. Jake leaned forward. You can't save someone who's already gone, but you can save yourself, if you're willing to do the work. Coleman wiped his eyes. I don't know how. One day at a time, that's all any of us can do. Coleman nodded slowly. Then he extended his hand. Jake stared at it for a moment before taking it. Thank you, Coleman said, for not leaving me to die. You're welcome. Jake stood to leave. At the door, Coleman called out, Mitchell. Yeah. For what it's worth, Emma's a lucky kid. Jake smiled. Yeah, she is. He left the hospital and drove home. Emma was waiting on the porch with Lou. How'd it go? Lou asked. Better than I expected. Emma hugged him. I'm proud of you, Dad. Jake kissed the top of her head. I'm proud of you too, kiddo. That night, after Emma was asleep, Jake sat at the table and thought about everything that had happened. He'd saved a man who'd tried to destroy him. He'd seen the humanity in someone everyone else called an enemy. And somehow in doing that, he'd saved himself too. He didn't know what came next, but for the first time in 3 years, he felt like maybe, just maybe, everything was going to be okay. The story hit the news that same night. By morning, Jake's face was everywhere. Local stations ran the footage on repeat, grainy cell phone videos of him running into the bank, emerging with Coleman on a stretcher, blood on his shirt and determination in his eyes. The headline read, Ex-con saves the cop who tried to destroy him. Jake hated it. He was making breakfast when his phone started ringing. Unknown numbers, one after another. He ignored them all. Dad, you're famous, Emma said, watching the TV. Turn it off, Em. But they're talking about you. I don't care. Turn it off. Emma clicked the remote. The apartment went quiet except for the sizzle of eggs in the pan. Jake's hands were shaking. He didn't want this attention. He just wanted to go back to being invisible. At 7:30, there was a knock at the door. Jake tensed. Don't answer it, he told Emma. Another knock, more insistent. Jake looked through the peephole and saw Lou standing there with a newspaper. He opened the door. You see this? Lou held up the front page. Jake's face stared back at him above the fold. Yeah. You're a hero, Jake. I'm not a hero. I just did what needed to be done. That's exactly what a hero is. Lou pushed past him and set the paper on the table. You need to read this. The whole town's talking about you. I don't want them talking about me. Too late. You saved a cop's life. You talked down two armed kids. You risked everything for a man who treated you like garbage. People are paying attention. Emma picked up the paper and read aloud. Jake Mitchell, a single father recently released from federal prison, ran into an active hostage situation Friday afternoon to save Officer Ryan Coleman, the same officer who had reportedly harassed Mitchell for months. Witnesses say Mitchell not only rescued Coleman, but also de-escalated the situation with the two teenage suspects, preventing further violence. She looked up at Jake, her eyes shining. Dad, this is amazing. It's embarrassing. No, it's not. You're a hero. Jake sat down and put his head in his hands. I'm not. I'm just a guy who got lucky. Lou pulled up a chair. Jake, listen to me. You spent 6 months with your head down trying to prove you weren't the man people thought you were. And in one moment you showed the whole town exactly who you are. That matters. It doesn't change anything. It changes everything. Jake looked up. Coleman still hates me. CPS is still watching me. I'm still broke, still living in this shoebox, still washing dishes for minimum wage. Nothing's changed. Give it time, Lou said. Jake wanted to argue, but he was too exhausted. Lou left after breakfast, taking Emma with him so Jake could get some rest before his shift. But Jake couldn't rest. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the bank, the blood, the guns, Tyler's terrified face. He gave up and went to work early. The diner was packed when he arrived, every booth full, people lined up at the door. Jake slipped in through the back and found Lou frantically flipping burgers. Thank God you're here. I don't know what happened, everyone just showed up. Jake tied on his apron and looked out through the kitchen window. People were staring at him, whispering, pointing. They're here because of you, Lou said. What? They want to see you. The guy from the news. Half of them have been asking when you'd be in. Jake felt sick. I can't do this. Yes, you can. Just do your job. Ignore them. Jake tried. He went to the sink and started washing dishes. But every few minutes someone would poke their head into the kitchen. Is that him? Can I get a picture? Mr. Mitchell, can I shake your hand? Jake wanted to scream. Instead, he kept his head down and scrubbed plates until his hands were raw. Around noon, Mrs. Peterson came in. She spotted Jake through the window and walked straight into the kitchen. Mr. Mitchell. Jake turned. Mrs. Peterson, is Emma okay? She's fine. She's wonderful, actually. I just wanted to tell you that what you did was extraordinary. Emma told the whole class about it this morning. She's very proud of you. Jake's chest tightened. She shouldn't be. I scared her half to death. You showed her what courage looks like. That's a gift. Mrs. Peterson smiled and left. Jake stood there gripping the edge of the sink, trying to process everything. That afternoon, when Jake picked Emma up from school, she ran to him with a drawing in her hand. Look what I made. It was a picture of Jake carrying Coleman out of the bank. Stick figures but unmistakable. At the top she'd written, "My hero dad." Jake's throat closed up. This is... You can hang it in the apartment so you remember. I don't need a picture to remember. I know. But I want you to have it anyway. Jake folded the drawing carefully and put it in his pocket. They walked home hand in hand, and for the first time in months, people didn't avoid Jake on the street. They nodded, smiled. A few even stopped to shake his hand. It was overwhelming. That night, Jake's phone rang. An unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Hello. Is this Jake Mitchell? Yeah. Who's this? My name's Tom Brennan. I own Brennan Construction here in town. I saw what you did on the news. Jake braced himself. Okay. I'm calling because I've got an opening. Foreman position. Pays $22 an hour, full benefits, room to move up. I need someone reliable. Someone with guts. You interested? Jake's heart stopped. Are you serious? Dead serious. You start Monday if you want it. Yes. Yes, I want it. Good. Come by the office tomorrow morning. We'll get the paperwork sorted out. Tom hung up. Jake stared at his phone, unable to believe what had just happened. Emma looked up from her homework. Who was that? Someone offering me a job. A better job. A lot better. Emma jumped up and hugged him. See, I told you everything would work out. Jake laughed, tears streaming down his face. Yeah, baby, you did. The next morning, Jake went to Brennan Construction and signed a contract. Tom Brennan was a no-nonsense guy in his 50s with calloused hands and a firm handshake. I believe in second chances, Tom said. You've proven you deserve one. Don't make me regret it. I won't, I promise. Jake gave Lou his 2 weeks' notice that afternoon. Lou took it well. I'm happy for you, Jake. You deserve this. I couldn't have done it without you. Yeah, you could have. You just needed someone to believe in you first. The following Monday, Jake started his new job. The work was hard construction, roofing, heavy lifting, but it felt good to use his body again to build something instead of just surviving. The crew was welcoming. A few guys recognized him from the news and treated him like a celebrity. Jake hated the attention, but appreciated the respect. 3 weeks into the job, Jake got a call from the hospital. Coleman wanted to see him again. Jake drove over after work, still covered in sawdust. Coleman was sitting up in bed this time, looking stronger but still pale. Mitchell, you came. You asked. Coleman gestured to the chair. Jake sat. They're releasing me tomorrow, Coleman said. That's good. Yeah, except I don't know what I'm going back to. My wife left me 6 months ago, took the kids. My house is a mess. My job, I don't even know if I can do it anymore. Jake leaned back. So what are you going to do? I don't know. That's why I called you. Coleman looked at him, his expression raw. How did you do it? After prison, after losing your wife, after everything, how did you keep going? I had Emma. She gave me a reason. I don't have that anymore. Then find a new reason. Like what? Jake thought for a moment. You told me your brother died because he couldn't see a way forward, because no one believed he could change. You can honor him by being the person he needed. Help people like him. People like me. People who made mistakes but want to do better. Coleman's eyes filled with tears. I don't know if I can. You can. You just have to want it. They sat in silence. Finally, Coleman spoke. I owe you an apology. For everything. I was wrong. Yeah, you were. Can you forgive me? Jake considered it. 6 months ago, he would have said no. But now, after everything he understood, something he hadn't before. Forgiveness wasn't about excusing what someone did. It was about letting go of the weight so you could move forward. Yeah, Jake said. I forgive you. Coleman exhaled relief washing over his face. Thank you. Jake stood to leave. At the door, he turned back. Coleman. You're going to be okay. You just have to believe it. Coleman nodded, wiping his eyes. Over the next month, Jake's life continued to change. He and Emma moved into a bigger apartment, 2 bedrooms, a real kitchen space to breathe. Emma decorated her room with posters and drawings and every stuffed animal she owned. Jake bought her new clothes and school supplies, and for the first time in 3 years, ice cream whenever she wanted it. Work was going well. Tom promoted him to lead foreman after 2 months, impressed by Jake's work ethic and leadership. The crew respected him, trusted him. It felt like redemption. One Saturday morning, Jake was at the grocery store with Emma when he ran into Coleman. The cop looked different, clean-shaven, clear-eyed, sober. He was with a woman Jake didn't recognize. Mitchell, Coleman said, surprised. Coleman. They stared at each other awkwardly. Then Coleman gestured to the woman beside him. This is Laura, my wife. We're working things out. Laura smiled. Ryan's told me a lot about you. Thank you for what you did. Jake shook her hand. I'm glad you're giving him another chance. He's giving me one too, Laura said, squeezing Coleman's hand. Emma tugged on Jake's sleeve. Dad, can we go? Yeah, baby, 1 second. Jake looked at Coleman. You look good. I'm trying. I've been going to meetings. AA. 3 weeks sober. That's great. Keep it up. I will. And Jake, I'm sorry. For everything. I know. We're good. Coleman nodded, his eyes wet. Thank you. Jake and Emma left the store. In the parking lot, Emma asked, Is he going to be nice now? I think so. Good. I didn't like him being mean. Me neither, kiddo. 2 months later, Coleman showed up at Jake's apartment. He looked nervous, shifting his weight from foot to foot. Mitchell, do you have a minute? Jake opened the door wider. Come in. Coleman stepped inside and looked around. Nice place. Thanks. What can I do for you? Coleman reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. He handed it to Jake. I need a reference. For a job application. Jake unfolded it. Crisis counselor at the youth center. Yeah. I'm done being a cop. I can't do that anymore. But I want to help people. Kids specifically. Kids who are headed down the wrong path. I figured I could make a difference there. Jake looked at Coleman, seeing the hope and fear in his eyes. You'll be good at it. You think so? I know so. So you'll write the reference? Jake grabbed a pen. Give me your email. I'll send it tonight. Coleman's face broke into a smile. Thank you, Jake. Really. After Coleman left, Emma came out of her room. What did he want? A second chance. Are you going to give it to him? Jake smiled. Yeah, Em. I am. That night, Jake wrote the reference letter. He told the truth that Coleman had made mistakes, that he'd struggled, but that he was committed to being better. He talked about Coleman's passion for helping others and his understanding of what it meant to fail and fight your way back. He sent it off and felt something shift inside him, something lighter. A week later, Coleman called. I got the job. That's great. They want me to start next month. I'm actually excited, Jake. I haven't felt that in years. You're going to do great things, Coleman. Ryan. What? Call me Ryan. Jake smiled. Okay, Ryan. They hung up. Jake sat on the couch. Emma curled up beside him watching TV, and he realized something. He'd spent so long trying to rebuild his own life that he hadn't noticed he was helping rebuild someone else's too. And maybe that was the point. Maybe redemption wasn't just about saving yourself. It was about reaching back and pulling someone else up with you. A month later, Jake got another call. It was Ryan. Jake, I need to ask you something. Shoot. Laura and I were thinking about fostering, maybe adopting. We want to give a kid the kind of chance we wish Danny had. But the agency needs references. Character witnesses. Would you? Yes. You didn't let me finish. I don't need to. Yes, I'll be your reference. Ryan's voice cracked. Thank you. You're going to be a great dad, Ryan. I hope so. After they hung up, Jake looked over at Emma, who was doing her homework at the table. Dad? She asked without looking up. Yeah. I'm really proud of you. Jake's throat tightened. I'm proud of you too, baby. Why I didn't do anything. You gave me a reason to keep going. That's everything. Emma looked up and smiled. You're such a sap. Jake laughed. Yeah, I guess I am. That night after Emma was asleep, Jake sat on the couch and thought about everything that had happened. 6 months ago, he'd been a broken man washing dishes, convinced he'd never amount to anything. Now he had a good job, a real home, and a daughter who was thriving. And somehow along the way, he'd helped save a man who'd tried to destroy him. It didn't make sense, but it didn't have to. Life wasn't about making sense. It was about showing up, doing the right thing. forgiving people who didn't deserve it, and giving second chances to those who did. Jake pulled out Emma's drawing from his wallet, the stick figure of him carrying Ryan out of the bank. He'd carried it with him every day since she'd given it to him. "My hero, Dad," it said. Jake smiled, tears in his eyes, and whispered, "No, baby, you're the hero. You saved me first." He folded the drawing carefully and put it back in his wallet, then lay down on the couch and closed his eyes. For the first time in 3 years, Jake Mitchell slept peacefully. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. But for tonight, he was okay. And that was enough. 6 months had passed since the day Jake ran into that bank. 6 months since he'd carried Ryan Coleman out on his back while bullets could have torn through both of them. 6 months since the town of Millbrook had stopped seeing him as the ex-con and started seeing him as something else entirely. It was a Saturday morning in late spring when everything came full circle. Jake was working on the new community center, a project Tom Brennan had won the bid for, when his phone rang. Ryan's name flashed on the screen. "Hey, Ryan?" "Jake, can you talk?" "Yeah, give me a second." Jake climbed down from the scaffolding and walked away from the noise of power tools and shouting workers. "What's up?" "Laura and we got approved." Jake's heart lifted. "For the fostering?" "Yeah. They're placing a kid with us next week. 8-year-old boy. His parents are both in prison, no other family." "Ryan, that's incredible." "I'm terrified." Jake laughed. "That means you're going to be a great dad." "How do you figure?" "Because the guys who aren't scared, they're the ones who screw it up. The fear means you care." There was silence on the other end. Then Ryan's voice, thick with emotion. "I don't know how to thank you." "You don't need to." "I do. You saved my life, Jake. Not just in the bank. You saved me from myself. If you hadn't, if you'd left me to die that day, or even if you'd just walked away after, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have Laura back. I wouldn't have this chance." Jake swallowed hard. "You did the work, Ryan. I just showed you it was possible." "Will you come to dinner next Friday? Meet the kid. I want him to know the man who made all this possible." "I don't know if that's a good idea." "Please. It would mean a lot. To both of us." Jake looked over at the construction site at the half-built community center that would serve kids just like the one Ryan was about to foster. Kids who needed second chances. Kids who needed to see that people could change. "Okay," Jake said. "We'll be there. We, Emma and me, if that's all right." "That's perfect." That night Jake told Emma about the dinner. She was lying on her bed reading, her legs kicked up against the wall. "Officer Coleman wants us to come for dinner." "He's not Officer Coleman anymore. He's just Ryan now. And yeah, he does." Emma sat up. "Is this weird?" "This feels weird." Jake laughed. "It's definitely weird. But we're going. We're going." Emma thought about it, then shrugged. "Okay, but if it gets awkward, we're leaving." "Deal." Friday came faster than Jake expected. He and Emma stood on Ryan's front porch at 6 o'clock sharp, Jake holding a bottle of wine he'd probably overpaid for, and Emma clutching a plate of cookies she'd insisted on baking. Ryan answered the door. He looked different in civilian clothes, jeans, and a button-down shirt. No uniform, no badge, just a regular guy. "Jake, Emma, come in." The house was warm and lived in. Laura appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. Behind her, peeking around the corner, was a small boy with dark hair and enormous brown eyes. "You must be Emma," Laura said, kneeling down. "Ryan's told me so much about you." Emma smiled shyly. "Hi." The boy stepped forward slowly. Ryan put a hand on his shoulder. "This is Marcus," Ryan said. "He's going to be staying with us." Jake's breath caught. Marcus. The same name as the second kid from the bank robbery. But this couldn't be. "Is he okay?" Marcus asked, pointing at Jake. Laura laughed. That's Mr. Mitchell. He's a friend. Marcus studied Jake carefully. You're the guy from the news, the one who saved Ryan. I am, Jake said. That was really brave. Thank you. They moved into the dining room. Dinner was simple: roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans. The conversation flowed easier than Jake had expected. Laura asked about Emma's school. Emma asked Marcus about his favorite movies. Ryan and Jake talked about the community center, about construction timelines, and budget concerns. It felt normal, like two families sharing a meal. Like the past didn't matter as much as the present. After dinner, Emma and Marcus disappeared into the living room to play video games. The adults sat at the table with coffee. I still can't believe this is real, Ryan said, watching Marcus through the doorway. 6 months ago, I was ready to throw my life away. Now look at me. You fought for it, Jake said. That's what matters. Laura reached over and squeezed Ryan's hand. We both did. It wasn't easy, but we decided we wanted our marriage more than we wanted to be right. And Jake, your letter, the one you wrote for Ryan's job application, the director of the youth center told us it's what pushed them to give him a chance. I just told the truth. You told them Ryan was worth believing in. That meant everything. Ryan cleared his throat. Jake, can I ask you something? Sure. That day in the bank, when you ran in, you could have died. Why did you do it? Jake had been asked this question dozens of times over the past 6 months by reporters, by coworkers, by strangers on the street. He'd given different answers each time, trying to find one that felt true. But sitting here in Ryan's home with Emma's laughter echoing from the other room, he finally understood. Because being human matters more than being right, Jake said. You treated me like garbage. You tried to take Emma away. You made my life hell, and I could have hated you for it. I could have walked past that bank and told myself you deserved whatever happened. But hate doesn't fix anything. It just makes everything heavier, and I was tired of carrying that weight. Ryan's eyes were wet. I don't deserve your forgiveness. Maybe not, but I gave it to you anyway, not because you earned it, because I needed to let it go. Laura wiped her own tears. You're a remarkable man, Jake Mitchell. I'm just a guy trying to do better than yesterday. From the living room, Emma called out. Dad, come here. Marcus is so good at this game. Jake excused himself and walked over. Emma and Marcus were sitting on the floor, controllers in hand, completely focused on the screen. Jake sat on the couch behind them and watched his daughter laugh, really laugh for the first time in months. Ryan joined him a moment later. Thank you for coming, Ryan said quietly. Thank you for inviting us. You know, I've been thinking about something you said in the hospital, about honoring my brother by helping people like him. That's what I'm trying to do with Marcus, and with the kids at the center. Give them what Danny never got. You're going to change lives, Ryan. I hope so. Ryan paused. There's something else I need to tell you. About the bank robbery. Jake turned to look at him. What about it? The 2 kids, Tyler and Marcus. What about them? Tyler got 5 years. He's at a juvenile facility upstate. But Marcus, the other kid, not this Marcus, he got probation. Community service. They were lenient because of his age and because he cooperated. And because of you. Me. Your testimony. You told the judge they were scared kids who made a terrible choice, not hardened criminals. You advocated for them. The prosecutor wanted to try them as adults, but your statement helped convince the judge otherwise. Jake hadn't known that. He'd given his statement to the police and tried to forget about it. Are they doing okay? Tyler's struggling, but Marcus is thriving. He's back in school, working part-time. His mom's cancer is in remission. He wrote me a letter last month thanking me for not shooting him that day, but really, he should be thanking you. Jake didn't know what to say. He watched Emma and young Marcus on the floor, their faces lit up by the TV screen, and he thought about the other Marcus, 17 years old, his whole life ahead of him, given a second chance, because Jake had chosen compassion over anger. I'd like to meet him someday, Jake said. If he's open to it, I think he'd like that. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the kids play. After a while, Laura called everyone back to the table for dessert, apple pie she'd made from scratch. Emma declared it the best pie she'd ever had. Marcus ate 2 slices. As the evening wound down, Jake and Emma said their goodbyes. At the door, Ryan pulled Jake into a hug. "Thank you," Ryan whispered, "for everything." "Take care of that kid," Jake said. "He needs you." "I will. I promise." On the drive home, Emma was quiet. Jake glanced over at her. "You okay?" "Yeah, I was just thinking." "About what?" "About how weird life is. 6 months ago, Officer Coleman, sorry Ryan was trying to take me away from you. And tonight, we had dinner at his house like we're friends. How does that happen?" Jake thought about it. "I think it happens when people decide to be better than their worst moments. Ryan could have stayed angry and drunk and miserable. I could have stayed bitter and resentful. But we both chose something different. Because you saved him." "No, sweetheart. Because we saved each other." Emma smiled and looked out the window. Jake drove through the quiet streets of Millbrook, past the diner, where he used to wash dishes, past the school, where Emma had been bullied, past the bank where everything had changed. The town looked different now. Or maybe Jake looked at it differently. Either way, it felt like home. At the apartment, Emma got ready for bed. Jake tucked her in like he did every night, pulling the blanket up to her chin and kissing her forehead. "Dad." "Yeah, baby. I'm really proud of you." "You've said that before." "I know, but I mean it more now. You didn't just save Ryan. You fixed him." Jake sat on the edge of her bed. "I didn't fix him, Em. He fixed himself. I just showed him it was possible." "That's the same thing." "Maybe." Emma yawned. "I think Mom would be proud of you too." Jake's throat tightened. He hadn't talked about Sarah in months. Hadn't let himself think about her because it hurt too much. But hearing Emma say it, hearing that Sarah would be proud, broke something open inside him. "You think so?" "I know so. She always said you were the strongest person she knew, even when you didn't believe it." Jake wiped his eyes. "Your mom was pretty smart." "Yeah, she was." Emma's eyes drifted closed. Jake sat there a while longer, watching her breathe, grateful beyond words for this second chance at being her father. In the living room, he pulled out his phone and looked at the last photo he had of Sarah. It was taken a week before she died, her in the hospital bed, smiling, despite everything, Emma curled up beside her. "I hope I'm making you proud," Jake whispered to the photo. "I'm trying. God, I'm trying." He set the phone down and walked to the window. The town was dark and quiet. Somewhere out there, Ryan was putting young Marcus to bed, probably terrified and hopeful in equal measure. Somewhere out there, the other Marcus was rebuilding his life, trying to be better. Somewhere out there, Tyler was counting down the days until he could try again too. And here Jake was standing in an apartment that actually felt like home, with a daughter who believed in him, and a job that gave him purpose, and a future that didn't look quite so terrifying anymore. 6 months ago, he'd been washing dishes and dodging a cop who hated him. Now he was building community centers and having dinner with that same cop's family. Life didn't make sense sometimes, but it didn't have to. Jake's phone buzzed. A text from Ryan. "Thank you for tonight. Marcus keeps asking when Emma can come back. I think you made an impression." Jake smiled and texted back. "Anytime. You're doing great, Ryan. Keep it up." Another buzz. "I couldn't have done any of this without you. You know that, right?" Jake stared at the message for a long time before responding. "We helped each other. That's how it's supposed to work." He set the phone down and went to bed. Tomorrow was Saturday. He'd promised Emma they'd go to the park and maybe catch a movie afterward. Normal things. Regular things. The kind of things he'd dreamed about during those 18 months in prison. As Jake drifted off to sleep, he thought about something Lou had told him once back when he'd first started at the diner. "Redemption isn't a destination, Jake. It's a direction. Just keep moving toward it." Jake had moved toward it every single day, even when it was hard, even when it hurt, even when the whole world seemed determined to push him backward. And somewhere along the way he'd found it. Not because he'd earned it, not because he deserved it, but because he'd chosen it, every single day. 3 weeks later, Jake was at the community center putting the finishing touches on the main hall when Ryan showed up with young Marcus and Emma. The kids ran off to explore while Ryan walked over to Jake. "Place looks incredible." "Tom did most of the work. I just hammered some nails." "Don't sell yourself short." Ryan looked around the empty hall. "You know they're naming it after you, right?" Jake's head snapped up. "What? The Mitchell Community Center. Tom pushed for it. The city council approved it last week." "No, absolutely not." "Too late. The sign's already ordered." Jake set down his hammer and sat on a stack of lumber. Ryan sat beside him. "I don't want this," Jake said. "I don't want my name on anything. I just want to do my work and go home." "I know. That's exactly why they're doing it. Because you don't want it. Because you're not looking for glory or recognition. You're just trying to be a good man. And that's worth celebrating." Jake shook his head, overwhelmed. "You saved my life," Ryan continued. "You saved those kids in the bank. You're building a place where other kids will get second chances. You're changing this town, Jake, whether you want to admit it or not." "I'm just trying to do better than yesterday." "And every day you succeed. That's the point." They sat in silence, watching Emma and Marcus run through the empty halls, their laughter echoing off the walls. "They're good together," Jake said. "Yeah. Emma's been really good for Marcus. She's patient with him, kind. She reminds me of you." Jake smiled. "She's better than me." "Maybe, but she learned it from somewhere." That night at the dinner table, Emma asked Jake a question that caught him off guard. "Dad, do you think Officer Coleman, sorry Ryan, do you think Ryan is happy now?" "I think he's getting there." "Why?" "Because he was so angry before, and now he's not. I was just wondering what changed." Jake thought about it. "I think he realized that being angry didn't make him feel better. It just made him feel worse. So he chose something different." "Like what?" "Like forgiveness, and hope, and believing that tomorrow could be better than today." Emma nodded, processing. "Is that what you did too?" "Yeah, baby. That's exactly what I did." "Do you think Mom would be proud of us?" Jake reached across the table and took her hand. "I know she would be." Emma smiled, tears in her eyes. "I miss her." "Me too. Every single day. But we're okay, right? Without her." Jake squeezed her hand. "Yeah, Em. We're okay. We're more than okay. We're going to be just fine." And for the first time since Sarah died, Jake actually believed it. 1 month later, the community center opened. The whole town showed up: Tom Brennan and his crew, Lou and his wife Mrs. Peterson, and half of Emma's school, Ryan and Laura and young Marcus, even Ms. Lawson from CPS. And standing in front of the building, right above the main entrance, was a sign that read, "The Mitchell Community Center, where second chances begin." Jake stood at the ribbon-cutting ceremony with Emma by his side, overwhelmed and uncomfortable and grateful all at once. The mayor gave a speech about redemption and community. Tom talked about Jake's work ethic and character. Ryan spoke about how Jake had saved his life and changed everything. Then it was Jake's turn. He stepped up to the microphone, his hands shaking, and looked out at the crowd. All these people who 6 months ago had treated him like a criminal. All these people who'd whispered and pointed and judged. "I don't have a big speech prepared," Jake said. "I'm not good at this kind of thing. But I want to say thank you. Thank you to Tom for giving me a chance when no one else would. Thank you to Lou for believing in me from day one. Thank you to everyone who looked past my mistakes and saw who I was trying to become." He paused, his voice cracking. "I spent a long time thinking I didn't deserve a second chance, that I'd made too many mistakes, hurt too many people. But this town taught me that second chances aren't about deserving them. They're about being willing to do the work to earn them. And I promise you, I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of the chance you've given me." The crowd erupted in applause. Emma hugged him tight. Ryan shook his hand. And Jake, standing there with tears streaming down his face, felt something he hadn't felt in 3 years. Peace. That night after the ceremony, after the celebration, after Emma had fallen asleep exhausted and happy, Jake sat on the couch and pulled out his phone. He scrolled through his photos until he found the one of Sarah in the hospital. "I did it," he whispered. "I kept my promise. Emma's safe. She's happy. We're going to be okay." He closed his eyes and let himself cry. Not tears of sadness, but tears of relief. Of gratitude. Of finally letting go of the weight he'd been carrying for so long. When he opened his eyes, Emma was standing in the doorway in her pajamas. "Dad? Are you okay?" Jake wiped his face and smiled. "Yeah, baby. I'm perfect." Emma walked over and curled up beside him on the couch. "Today was a good day. The best. Do you think things will always be this good?" Jake wrapped his arm around her. "I think we'll have hard days too. But we'll face them together, and as long as we have each other, we'll be okay." Emma yawned and rested her head on his shoulder. "I love you, Dad. I love you too, sweetheart. More than anything in this world." They sat there in the quiet apartment, father and daughter, two people who'd survived more than most and come out the other side stronger. Jake thought about everything that had led him to this moment. The mistakes, the loss, the shame, the fight to rebuild, the choice to save a man who'd tried to destroy him, the decision to forgive when hatred would have been easier. And he realized something profound. True strength wasn't in revenge or pride or proving yourself right. True strength was in the courage to forgive, to act with compassion, even when the world called you broken, to believe that tomorrow could be better if you were willing to do the work. Jake Mitchell had been called a criminal, a failure, a man who didn't deserve his daughter. But tonight, he was a hero, a father, a man who'd chosen humanity over anger. And that made all the difference.